My guest is the Republican candidate for California, the leading candidate. Please welcome back to the program, Steve Hilton. Steve,
Larry, great to be with you.
It is increasingly difficult, as you and I were speaking a moment ago, to listen to this man. I've never seen anybody lie with that kind of ease, that kind of self-assuredness, and at least for now, he's getting away with it. His numbers have gone up since he pulled off this stunt about Proposition 50.
Yeah. And also the insane, hyped-up way he's attacking the president, the administration, everything that it does. I mean, the other week we had the No Kings protest, the laughable protest there. Gavin Newsom's turned into a real drama queen, I think. The way he talks in this hyped up manner about everything. And it's just so, on the one hand, it's laughable because it's so divorced from reality. On the other hand, you've got to take it seriously because exactly as you say, it's working for him. That's why he's doing more of it. The base of the Democrat, the activists, they are lapping it up. Mm-hmm. They love it because they love nothing more than sticking it to Trump. And of course, this whole Prop 50 insanity was all along about Gavin Newsom's personal presidential ambitions. That's the only reason we're doing this. Nobody wanted this election. Nobody asked for it. It doesn't do anything to solve the multitude of problems that Gavin Newsom and the Democrats have caused: high gas prices, electric bills, taxes, crime, homelessness, the worst business climate in the country. We could go on all day about the disasters that they've created. This doesn't deal with any of that. In fact, it makes it worse because it entrenches their one-party rule. Mm-hmm. But of course, the real driver was the fact that Gavin Newsom is desperate to be president. He wanted to be the guy that steals another 5 House seats from Republicans so that Democrats can flip the House, impeach President Trump, and in Gavin Newsom's own words, right at the beginning of this process, end the Trump presidency. That was his words. Those were his words at the beginning. And so we've just paid $300 million of taxpayer money for that. It is just another example of the corruption that we have from this one-party rule in California. Then people are sick of it. That's why I'm confident, actually, whatever happens today, that we are going to get change in California next year.
You know, Steve, I know that Californians hate Donald Trump's guts. I understand that. But I am still surprised at the same voters who went to the polls in 2008 to take away gerrymandering from the politicians, to put it in a commission for state races, and then 2 years later did the same thing to take it out of the hands of the politicians and put it into a commission for House races. By a 2-to-1 margin that passed. The same voters have now done a reverse and put the process back into the hands of the politicians, all because they hate Donald Trump and because Gavin Newsom has to convince them to do so. That still blows my mind.
Well, the Trump derangement syndrome is real. Yeah. I mean, we've seen that for years now. And of course, this is an example of that. By the way, this was my concern all along with this, that actually you'd have a combination of Trump derangement syndrome, the corrupt Democrat machine with all the money that they have from the unions, the government unions, that's effectively our money, the Soros money coming in, all of that on one side. And on the other side, you've got this noble argument about how we should be drawing districts and all the rest of it. And I was always concerned that they would prevail, which is why right at the beginning of the process, I filed a federal lawsuit to try and stop it, because it's clearly unconstitutional what they're trying to do.
Well, we're going to if you can stay another segment, Stephen. I want to talk to you about your federal lawsuit. My guest is Steve Hilton, candidate for governor of California. HiltonforGovernor.com, right?
Steve Hilton for Governor.com.
Steve Hilton for Governor.com. Steve Hilton for Governor.com. Steve, hold on. When we come back, I want to talk about your lawsuit because I agree with you. It seems to me a clear violation of the 14th Amendment. It was already unlawful, and now it's going to get even worse. Steve Hilton for Governor.com. Steve, don't go away. Steve filed a lawsuit to overturn Proposition 50. Steve, you were going to give us the update on that lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, it's another example of the corruption that we're up against in this one-party rule in California. It's a federal lawsuit based exactly as you touched on earlier. It's the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment, the U.S. Constitution. It's also in the California Constitution. Very simple point, which is that part of the principle underpinning one person, one vote is that every vote should be equal value, and to ensure that districts should be roughly equal in population size. That's why the drawing of maps has been connected to the census every 10 years. Now, they've drawn these maps in secret in a back room in Sacramento without any reference to what's going on with California's population. Of course, millions of people have left California since the last maps were drawn, driven out by the insane far-left policies. On top of that, you've had whole neighborhoods burned to the ground in Los Angeles. They have no clue who lives where or what the population is of these new districts that they've drawn. That's the basis of the argument. We filed at the beginning of September. We were given the runaround immediately from Gavin Newsom and Shirley Weber, the Secretary of State, who delayed and delayed and delayed. So we applied for a preliminary injunction to speed the process along because we wanted this resolved before the ballots went out. The judge, we filed in Orange County. It was transferred to a Biden judge in Riverside County, who blocked us at every turn, denied the preliminary injunction. We then asked for an expedited hearing. That was denied. The hearing was set for, wait for it, November the 6th, 2 days after the election. So we appealed that and said, you can't make these decisions on your own. You need a 3-judge panel, which is with federal law, when it's something to do with redistricting. Every single turn, this judge blocked it. I started out not particularly wanting to believe that just because this judge was appointed by Biden that she would be biased, but there's no other conclusion to draw. Totally biased, interfering in the process. And so the latest was that yesterday she ruled that she didn't need oral argument, so we're not going to have a hearing on Thursday. She can make the decision on her own. It feels like she's leading up to try and dismiss this case. So that's where we are today. But there's another important development in the works, which is that I've been having conversations with my friends and colleagues in the state legislature and in the state party. We're working together as a team to make sure that one way or another, if the result doesn't go the way that we want tonight, and of course there's still time for people to go and vote in California to stop this, then we will work together to have the best possible legal argument to try and overturn something which is blatantly unconstitutional. And so there's a number of us in that conversation, and we'll probably have more news on that later in the week.
Steve, there are 5 seats that have been redrawn that the Democrats assume will become Democrat seats. Is that ironclad? Are the 5 people going to run irrespective of their districts being redrawn? And is it possible that at least some of the 5 could get reelected?
Well, this is what's so outrageous about what's happening here. And of course, we want to stop it. We want to stop it every way we can. It's unconstitutional. There's no question about that. And so, and the vote was, as we were just discussing, bought with government money, effectively, union money and Soros money. And so we're not giving up the fight. And so I'm hoping it doesn't get to that point, and that the current, and one way or another, the current districts stand. Now, you've got some very strong members of Congress in there. My friend Kevin Kiley, who's a big supporter of my campaign. We can't lose people like that. Right. He's a fantastic fighter for California. And so one way or another, we got to make sure that continues. But it's we're going to fight this every way we can. We've
got people like Darrell Issa, of course, and Doug LaMalfa, exactly. Valadao. These are really strong Republicans. Hopefully we can't lose them. Steve, how did they get away with it this long? I mean, 43 of the 52 seats are Democrat, even though California's 40% voted for Trump. They want to make it 48. The 43 has been ridiculous. They've gotten away with it all this time, and Republicans have not yelled and screamed about this?
I love you raising that. So here's the thing. I was onto this even before Gavin Newsom popped up with this outrageous scheme, because I dug into it. And actually, even though, as you said, the people of California voted in 2008 and 2010 to put this in the hands of an independent commission, there was nothing independent about it. The Democrats hijacked the process. I've spoken to people involved at the time. The law firm that was hired by the Citizens Independent Districting Commission was the DNC law firm, the Obama-Biden campaign lawyers. They were the lawyers for the so-called independent process. The people who drew the maps were the same people that Gavin Newsom just hired to draw his rigged maps this time. So every aspect of it was hijacked and biased in favor of the Democrats, and that's why you end up with a massively rigged gerrymandered map today, even before Prop 50. And so even before Prop 50, I had made a commitment that I would reopen that whole process and make sure we take it back to the intention which was to have truly independent districts that give a fair balance in terms of representation. Right now, we have roughly, 40% of the vote, even in a bad year for Republicans in California, 17% of the House seats. It's outrageous. After this goes through, if it does, and it's not reversed as we hope it will be, it would be 6%, 40% of the vote, 6% of the representation in the House. Another way of putting it, it would take 193,000 votes to elect a Democrat to Congress, 1.52 million to elect a Republican. A Democrat vote would be worth 8 times a Republican vote. That is obscene. There's no way that we can let this stand. So that's why I keep saying, one way or another, we're not going to let this drop. This is the kind of stuff you get in a totalitarian one-party system, and that we're not going to allow that. I'm going to fight that every way I can, today, tomorrow, in the months and years ahead, and when I'm governor.
Steve, HiltonForGovernor.com is the website. Steve, we have literally 20 seconds left. As you know, no Republican statewide in the last 20 years. How do we win?
Because it's time for change. There's a majority in California. People think it's time for change. It's a big, over 60%. And I'm out there with a clear, simple, positive plan to get things back on track for working families, for small business. $3 gas, cut your electric bills, a home you can afford. That's how we make California golden again, end this ridiculous nanny state bureaucracy, and restore the California dream. I think it's a winning message.
Steve, HiltonForGovernor.com. Steve, Godspeed. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Larry.
You got it.